Next up, we have West African Resources, Mr. Richard Hyde, who's the MD. He's a geologist with over 20 years of experience in the minerals industry and more than 15 years of experience in West Africa. Richard has managed large exploration and development projects in a range of different geological environments in Australia, Africa, and Eastern Europe. He has consulted extensively to the mining industry as a senior consultant with RSG Global and Kofi, based in West Africa and Australia. Richard is a founding director and a shareholder of West African Resources. He is a member of the Australian Institute of Mining and Metallurgy, and I think he's also got under a lot of pressure from his wife.
It's true. Thank you, Mr. Hyde. Yeah, I've got some very similar stories to Don as well about getting approval from your wife for putting money into your own company. I did promise to sell my ute. I've got an old Falcon ute. It's a 1965 blue ute. It's beautiful. It's got a V8 motor and I love it dearly, and I promised my wife in December 2015 when we did a capital raising at 6.5 cents that the ute was going. She didn't read the fine print because the share price tripled. I said, it's not getting sold. All right, so there's some forward-looking statements I'm going to be making. You can believe most of what I'm saying today. We are an ASX TSX listed gold developer in West Africa, focused in Burkina Faso. 2016 was a transformational year for us. We made a very high-grade discovery and it completely changed our company and our project. Previously, we had been working on a small heap leach project that was going to do about 50,000 ounces a year. We were very close to finishing the feasibility study for that project when we made the discovery. The discovery hole last year in March was in 4 metre composites. I think it was 31 metres at 17 grams, and on from that we kept drilling aggressively. We raised over $30 million last year, and it has been an excellent experience. The previous years were very tough, and this industry is a lot of fun when you're making discoveries and drilling high-grade gold. So it's sort of been 20 years in training for me, and we've executed very well over the last 12 months. So M1's the high-grade discovery. We're getting extreme grades. Recently we reported results up to 1.6 kilos per tonne of ore. It's a very high-grade system. And right next to it is our previous project that we've been working on, is the M5 deposit, which is larger and low grade. And what we're looking at doing is blending the two deposits together, and we're seeing over time the head grade of the blended project going well over 2 grams towards 3 grams per tonne. Also, we've got about 1,000 square k's of greenstone belt in Burkina. We haven't really put a lot of effort into that exploration recently because we've been so focused on the development project at Stambrado. We worked really quickly last year, and possibly too quickly. I don't think we really grasped how significant this discovery was, and we completed a feasibility study inside 12 months of discovery, and that demonstrated the project could do over 150,000 ounces a year at cash costs, all-in costs around about $700 an ounce. After about 3 years, we'd actually run out of the high grade that we'd discovered, and subsequently we've done a lot more drilling. We've more than doubled the depth of that high grade. It's still open at depth at 400 metres. We've drilled over 50,000 metres in the last 10 or 12 months. Because of the previous work that we'd done on the heap leach project, we had applied for a mining licence, so we were actually fully permitted for a heap leach project, and we're updating those permits at the moment for CIL. We've recently completed a capital raising with Sprott out of Canada. We've got over $26 million in cash. We've also got about 50 million options, I'll show you on the next slide, and about 40 million options are held by Macquarie Bank, and they mature next month. So there'll be another cash injection of about $6 million. So we've got plenty of cash to really aggressively develop the project, to keep drilling, and by mid next year we should have a much better idea of what the feasibility study is going to look like, and based on that we'll make a decision when we go ahead with production. I'll also point out that we've got a very small board and management team, but we've all been doing work in the industry for over 20 years or 30 years for some of us, and we've got the ability to deliver this project. Just quickly, we're in Burkina Faso, and I have removed a slide here which talked about Burkina as a mining jurisdiction. It is excellent. The bulk of the geology in Burkina is underlain by rocks that are very prospective for gold. There's probably more than a dozen gold mines in production. There's still a few projects being built. It's approaching, as a country, roughly the size of Victoria, a bit larger than Victoria, more than 1.5 million ounces in production per annum. There are some very big companies in Burkina, so it's got a very stable mining code. It was updated in 2015. So it's a very good jurisdiction to work, and it's a very clearly outlined mining code. So the discovery last year was really RC122. So we put out the 4 metre composites, and then later on we went and did the 1 metre sampling. So the discovery hole there was 12 metres at 53, including a metre at 534. And so we actually put that photo up last year in the presentation. Subsequent to that, we've been drilling aggressively. We've taken that zone down to 400 metres. The most recent drilling result was 21 metres at 53, including half a metre at 1.6 kilos per tonne, or 1,600 grams per tonne. Like I said, we've done a full feasibility study. We kind of spooked the market, I think, because there was the assumption that we were going to go ahead and develop the project based on that. And that wasn't the case. There was a lot more detail in that announcement that we put out in February that probably hadn't filtered into the market properly. We've been drilling this year with 6 rigs. We've drilled over 60,000 metres, mostly diamond core, and we plan to keep going well into next year. Just on the corporate overview, the company's got a market capitalisation of roughly $200 million. You can see the share price graph. We hit a low of 18 cents in February when we put out our study. And because we are dual listed, all our work is being done to both JORC 2012 and NI 43-101. So you know, we are compelled to put out pre-tax and after-tax numbers. And obviously a mining reserve complying with 43-101 can't have any inferred material at all. So the study was probably light on in indicated resources, and what we've done subsequently is we've done a lot of work to upgrade those resources. Board and management have got about 4.4%, and I'm about 3.4% of the company. Major shareholders are now Canadian, Sprott and 1832, and CQS out of London. So we've got a small board, it's just 3 of us, myself, Mark and Simon. We've all got experience in mining. Mark obviously is well known, he's built projects and dealt projects in West Africa. Simon's been involved with the company since seed in 2007. And myself, I started the company about 10 years ago this month. So it's been a long project for me, but it's really coming to fruition at the moment. Our management team has been developing over the last 12 months, so Lyndon Hopkins has come on board as COO. Nick Harch is still advising on project finance. Vince Morello, exploration manager in country, is a very competent person. He's also a master of about 4 or 5 languages, so he's a very handy bloke to have. Pierre Tapso is our national director. He's a former government minister and a PhD geologist. And our most recent addition is Joanne Thompson, who's our sustainability manager, looking after all the permitting. And we'll be looking to add to that over the next 6 or 12 months. So the project itself, Zambrano, over 2 million ounces in resources. We've done a lot of drilling, over 150,000 metres of drilling. It's suitable for conventional mining, so conventional mining and processing, so we're not required to do any sort of processing which is not conventional. So it's a very straightforward, in the study we did in February, it's a very straightforward single stage grind of about 100 microns. We'll probably look at that, it's splitting that mill from a single stage SAG to a 2-stage milling circuit in the next study. So the core looks pretty spectacular. This is a hole that we've drilled just up dip of DD111, which was the high grade result I was mentioning before. This is still pending. It's a wedge hole, and clearly we'll get a lot of gravity recovery on this material. And we think there's about 3 shoots across about 300 or 400 metres of strike of the project, the prospect. The southern shoot we're drilling at the moment is the best developed. We've drilled that down to about 400 metres. It's in excess of 1,500 ounces per vertical metre. There is a dominant sulphide, which is pyrrhotite, which I'll talk about in a second, and we've still got 2 rigs on site drilling through the wet season. We expect to have a resource update out by the end of the quarter. It might be early October, because we're still waiting on quite a few assays. So in long section, you can see that the chute on the left-hand side of the screen has been tackled down to nearly 400 vertical metres. The blue line there is our reserve boundary from February, and the reserve on M1 was about 200,000 ounces at about 10 grams in open pit. We've taken that down to more than double that contained material now. So the colours on that, we've got green through to purple. Purple is over 1,000 gram metres, so the equivalent of 10 metres at 100 grams, or 50 at 20, other variations. The most recent drilling, and one of the reasons why we decided to push back on our study timetable, is that we really need to get a good idea of what we've got here. We've had so much success in the last 6 months. Post putting out our feasibility study, we've got to keep drilling. So the most recent drilling, we drilled 6 holes on that high-grade chute, and 5 out of 6 hit very high-grade mineralisation. So 11 at 20, including 2 at 100, 8.5 at nearly 40, 29.5 at over 20, 22 metres at 10.5, and another zone, 15 at 12. And what it looks like it's doing at depth is, it looks like the 2 zones are splitting. So we've got 2 loads, a hangable load and a footwall load. And then the most recent hole we put out was 21 metres at 53, including a metre at 1600, half a metre at 1600, and 14.5 metres at 38 grams per tonne, including 4.5 metres at over 100. So what does it look like? Oh, in a sec, I'll tell you that. So we've taken that down to nearly 400 metres, double the depth of mineralisation. The key takeaway from the resource work that we did probably wasn't that clear in February, but we've used 2 different methods for estimating the resource here. The low-grade domains have been estimated using MIK, and the high-grade domains have been estimated using ordinary kriging. So the key takeaway here is that at a 0 cut-off or a 5 gram per tonne cut-off, the ordinary Krieg domains don't change in grade. It's over 30 grams per tonne with a 200 gram per tonne top cut. And that's what we've been focused on. So this is going to be something like a 10 gram per tonne open pit to start with, and it'll be something like a 30 or 40 gram per tonne underground mine. So this is a slide of DD111, obviously very high grade, and the key takeaway from this is we're dealing with a very ductile deformation event, and the gold is early and it has been sheared. You can see the nice lenses of gold in this material. It's not necessarily nuggety. There's a lot of fine disseminated gold. This material repeats really well, so we've done a lot of test work. All of the assays we're putting out now have been done with gravimetric checks, and clearly you can see the gold, so it's going to have very little issues with recovery. M5 is the low-grade deposit, or lower-grade deposit, which is quite close to M1. It's 300 metres wide, 3 k's in strike. It's got a very low strip ratio, and this is sort of bread and butter, and there's a lot of oxide on it as well. And we're looking at blending these 2 deposits together. At depth, we've drilled it down to about 300 vertical metres, and the deepest hole we drilled there was 77 metres at 5, including 27 metres at 12. So clearly there's a lot of work to do here. The most recent drilling has improved will improve the resource grade, and we expect that pit will pull down further. The overview of the study, which I mentioned earlier, over 150,000 ounces a year over the first 3 years. We expect that will extend now because we've added more high grade. CapEx of about 130 million. That's likely to go up because we'll probably look at including grid power and splitting the mill and a few other things. So, but we'll still be in that range, I think, of between 140 and 160 million. The costs are already quite low, and we expect those to slide into the mid-600s with the addition of more high grade. And currently, life of mine recovery was about 91%, and with the addition of more high grade again, that should creep up into the mid-90s. The key takeaway here is we haven't stopped drilling, so we've always drilled, even through the most difficult times. The grade is increasing, so the more high-grade resources we're adding to the project, the blended head grade is getting up towards 2.5 grams and beyond. And one of the things I know from working in Africa is you need to have a project with a head grade over 2 grams for it to work. So for the rest of this year, we're still drilling. We'll be updating resources. We're completing some MAG and IP surveys, and we expect those to deliver more targets. We're drilling some 700 metre holes at the moment into M1, and we'll design and start a new drill program for the 2017-18 field season once all the results are in September. And next year you can expect more drilling. We're going to drill over 60,000 metres of RC and diamond. We'll work on some met test work, update the permits from heap lease to CIL, and we should have a new feasibility study mid next year. And before we go ahead with project, the decision to mine, we're going to maximise the project value. We're well funded, we've got plenty of cash in the bank, we've got more money coming in from Macquarie Bank next month. So stay tuned and keep an eye out for some more high grade. Thank you.